I want you to picture something for me. Just look past the fire and the steel for a second. When you stare up at the night sky and see a launch, you think you're watching a rocket company, right? You think you're watching humanity reach out into the vast, dark expanse of space. But hidden possibilities suggest you might actually be witnessing a $1.7 trillion illusion. You see, for 2 decades, the world looked at this massive enterprise and saw rockets. Then, as thousands of tiny lights started dotting the atmosphere, we saw a satellite network. But beneath that very familiar, awe-inspiring narrative, a quiet, massive shift has been taking place right under our noses.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the recent IPO filing from this space giant reveals a truly profound hidden truth. This company has secretly rebranded itself into something far, far more volatile than anyone realized. We aren't just looking at a business that builds rockets and dreams of Martian colonies anymore. We're actually looking at a highly speculative, incredibly expensive artificial intelligence venture.
Part 1. The Mask and the Manifesto. Cosmic Poetry. Now, their IPO prospectus reads less like a standard Wall Street balance sheet and a lot more like an existential manifesto for a brand new civilization. 10 separate times, the document talks about extending the light of consciousness to the stars, warning investors with this intense urgency that we absolutely cannot share the fate of the dinosaurs. But beneath all of that beautiful cosmic poetry, the financial reality is bracing. A staggering loss of $662 million in the space division, and that's just in the last quarter alone. Let that sink in for a moment. The rockets, the grand Mars dreams, those awe-inspiring launches, right now, they're a bottomless pit for capital.
And Hidden News reveals how they're keeping the lights on. The only part of this massive empire actually turning a profit is the satellite internet business, Starlink. That glowing orbital web is doing all the heavy lifting. It's effectively subsidizing a secret, monumental, money-losing AI infrastructure deficit. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act, where the reliable profits of space communications are just being funneled directly into the blazing furnace of artificial intelligence research.
Part 2. Unveiling the hidden market. Calculating value. To truly grasp the sheer breathtaking scale of this $1.7 trillion gamble, we have to look at how they calculate their own worth. Because the logic they're presenting, it takes us into completely uncharted economic territory. They are claiming a total addressable market of $28.5 trillion. Let me say that again, because the scale is just dizzying. $28.5 trillion. That figure is actually larger than the entire gross domestic product of the United States of America. It's a staggering, almost incomprehensible economic claim to just casually drop into a public filing. But here is the chilling reality. Some believe that almost all of this massive, nation-sized market valuation is built entirely on ghost businesses. We're talking about enterprise and consumer AI tools that literally do not even exist yet. The grand, sweeping vision of a multiplanetary human future is currently being bankrolled by theoretical software revenue that hasn't materialized. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer disproportion here. It's staggering. A shocking 93% of this company's valuation is purely tied to AI dominance. Just 7% is attributed to the actual space travel and other ventures. If you strip away the lofty, poetic talk of saving human consciousness, Hidden Possibilities suggest this is no longer a space exploration company at all. It's essentially an infrastructure company for a competitor's artificial intelligence, just operating behind the incredibly photogenic cinematic front of rocket launches. And the cost of maintaining that photogenic front while desperately chasing AI dominance? It's mind-blowing. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, that secret AI division lost $2.5 billion. It is a sheer, unadulterated incineration of capital taking place behind closed doors. Investors are effectively paying this massive premium for the futuristic vibe of space, while the actual physical capital is being burned up in server racks. Part 3. The Great AI Divide. Internal Rejection. So you might be wondering, what exactly is this massive mountain of cash actually funding? Well, we have to look at their flagship AI product, Grok, because hidden behind all the public bravado, there is a very quiet, very real struggle taking place with this tech. Despite the trillions in projected market value, Grok currently holds a mere 3.4% market share. It's just a tiny, flickering spark struggling to survive in a sea completely dominated by entrenched tech giants. And Hidden News suggests the enterprise pitch to big businesses is failing right now, mostly because Grok's main documented uses are largely just basic fact-checking and, well, generating controversial images on social media.
But the most fascinating secret of all in this explainer is what's happening internally. The engineers of this company, a company whose value is supposedly 93% AI, completely reject their own tool. They've been incredibly slow to adopt it for their own technical work. Why? Because they simply prefer rival tools. Grok reportedly underperforms when the stakes are quite literally life and death. When it comes to actual rocket science, the creators won't even use their own creation. And this brilliantly illustrates the desperate financial scramble happening behind the scenes. Just recently, the founder admitted that the AI code would need to be rebuilt from scratch. That's an astonishing admission, especially coming right after selling it to the space company for $250 billion. And now, to bridge this catastrophic gap in capability, they're scrambling to spend another $60 billion to buy out the rival tool that their own engineers actually prefer to use in the first place. Part 4. A fortified public dictatorship, corporate control. As we peel back the layers of this prospectus, the financial bleeding is really just one piece of the puzzle. This Wall Street filing isn't only about a secret pivot to artificial intelligence. It contains an incredibly ominous blueprint for control. It outlines a stark, unyielding dual-class share structure. It's meticulously designed to create what can only be described as a fortified dictatorship in the public markets. Through this specific arrangement, one single man will hold an overwhelming 85% of the voting control, despite owning only 41% of the company's actual equity. So, the crucial point is this. If you buy in, you are being explicitly warned that you will have absolutely no meaningful ability to influence the board. You will have zero voice in the future direction of the mission. I really want you to think about that for a second. Would you invest your hard-earned capital into a company where you have no voting rights, where your voice is permanently muted by design? And if that wasn't enough to give you pause, there's a startling exit clause buried deep within the paperwork. The filing officially renounces certain corporate opportunities. In plain terms, this means leadership is legally permitted to just walk away and start separate, entirely private companies that directly compete with this one. They can build competing empires right next door, while the original investors remain totally trapped inside. Part 5, the final fragile linchpin, Starship risk. Let's move to and see how this builds to the most critical point of all. Because despite the mind-bending $1.7 trillion valuation, all those futuristic promises of AI, and the ironclad corporate control, this entire house of cards balances precariously on just one single piece of physical hardware. That linchpin is the massive Starship rocket. Without it, none of this works. The orbital data centers, the sprawling Mars colonies, the next-generation high-capacity satellites, they simply cannot exist without it. And the company's own prospectus admits that to even remotely justify their valuation, the rocket requires an insane flight rate. We're talking about hundreds of successful, flawless launches every single year. And here is the ultimate explosive reality of this whole situation. The rocket that holds the entire 1.7 trillion future of this enterprise has yet to land without exploding. If that required insane flight rate is even half of what's being promised, or if the reliability of the hardware falters in the slightest bit, the entire AI-driven valuation collapses instantly, like shattered glass. Make no mistake, we are witnessing the largest, most fiercely speculative IPO in human history. It's a monumental all-or-nothing bet that artificial intelligence will somehow conquer the stars before the money simply runs out. Investors are not buying a traditional business model here. They are literally being asked to buy a vibe, a profound belief in a single man and a towering mission. And the filing makes it perfectly clear. If you feel misled later on because the promises of 30-minute Shanghai to London rocket flights don't materialize, well, you were told. It was all just for the ride. Extending the light of consciousness to the stars is undeniably a beautiful, deeply resonant human goal. But as we watch the spectacular fire and steel reach for the heavens, surrounded by the invisible, heavy mechanics of the economy, a profound mystery lingers. At what cost do we trade our voice, our capital, and our grasp on financial reality just for a seat on the rocket?